For centuries, village life in Mali has followed the unhurried pace of the seasons and the sun. Still today, 70% of the country's people live in rural areas. They plant cotton to sell and millet to eat, which the women have to pound 2 times before they can use it to make porridge, first to get the husks off and then again to turn the grain into flour. But in the village of Simiji, about 60 kilometers from Mali's capital, Bamako, things are starting to change. Sira Bagayogo takes care of her 4 children and her husband, and her chores have just become a whole lot easier. There's a machine in the village now that grinds millet, and for the price of about 10 US cents, Sira's hours of back-breaking work are reduced to a few minutes of waiting.
I'm less tired now because I don't have to put so much physical effort into my work. We're better off in every way.
The machine is basically a generator that can run not only on diesel but also on the oil from a locally grown plant called jatropha. It's part of a government initiative to improve electricity supply in the countryside without relying on crude oil imports and increasing carbon emissions. The oil from the jatropha seed does produce some carbon dioxide when burned, but very little, less in fact than the plant uses to grow. Most Malian households currently use wood fuels, which release much more carbon dioxide when burned. But Mali's contribution to global carbon emissions is still comparatively tiny. At the last count in 2003, it produced just 0.62 megatons a year, compared to the 5,800 produced by America. But Abubakar Samanke, Mali's man in charge of jatropha, feels it's never too early for a clean slate.
Mali wants to take charge of its own development. So that's why the Malian government put nearly $1 million on the table to create the conditions for the large-scale production of biofuels, which will run installations in villages and tractors.
With additional money from the World Food Programme and the World Bank, Mali's government has now installed 700 of these so-called multifunctional platforms in villages around the country. Each one costs about $5,000, of which the villagers have to pay $1,000. For local student Suleiman Doumbia, the machine has been a godsend. It's opened up a whole new horizon.
I'm going to charge my battery and then I'll use it to turn on a television. It cost $1 to get it charged.
Keba Doumbia is one of the operators of the platform and also does the bookkeeping, which is up for all to see on the blackboard. He says that the village cooperative is already making its money back.
We have monthly subscribers, 180 in total, or rather 60 families with 3 light bulbs each, and then there are also 40 public lampposts.
At the moment, the village buys its jatropha oil from Sikasso, 320 kilometers away, but they've started planting their own. The first harvest is expected in 3 months, and then they can either sell the seeds back to the ministry or buy their own oil press. The people of Simiji have opted for the press.
5 or 10 years ago, if we would have asked the population to make the jatropha oil, they would have asked themselves, what's the point? What is it good for? So we have to create the conditions first. And what's happening now is that people are getting used to having electricity, to getting their grain milled and their batteries charged. But you need fuel for that, and they can't get fuel here. So the solution is for them to plant jatropha. That's the explanation. People need to see it first to believe it.
Farmers here have also found the plant to grow on poor soils, not suited for food crops. and it's native to the Sahel, so it doesn't need much water.
There's a big difference between growing foodstuffs and growing jatropha, because the other plants need a lot of hard work and care, whereas once you've planted jatropha, it more or less takes care of itself.
As the sun sets, the day is over for most in Mali's countryside. With no light, they'll eat their evening meals and then turn in for the night. Not so here in Samiji, where the platform means that the day now has more hours, and Sira can carry on working in her sitting room until well after dinner.
Now that we have light, we can peel ground nuts, prepare our shea butter, chop vegetables to eat, prepare wood parcels to sell, and sit and chat.
Around the corner, the men of the village have gathered round to watch the Champions League final. For people with electricity, life without it is unimaginable, as people here in Samiji are finding out. But most local consumers don't ask where the power they're using comes from, whereas here they produce it themselves, and it's CO2-free. So compared to most households in the West, this tiny village in Mali has its own source of energy that's fit for the future.